Check, check, check. Check, okay. Check, check.
I'm going to introduce you, okay?
Hello. Check, okay.
Okay, we're about ready to go, everybody. Good evening, everybody. My name is George Reynoso. Rick Kern, the organizer, asked me to do this stuff between tonight's bands. There's a lot of entertainment tonight. I'm going to try to keep it short on time. But let me tell you, first of all, this is a fundraiser, and this is the third annual Border Legends, kind of an El Paso senior Woodstock of sorts. Let me tell you a little bit about Rick Kern. He's the guy that came up with the brains of this. This is the third annual. The first annual was first held out at the Big Al's. How many were out there 3 years ago? I think we could have had a problem with the fire marshal. There's probably 150 people we can fit in that building. Last year's was really successful, and this year, man, I don't know. This thing is going to be great tonight. But a little bit about Rick. He did the typical thing in the 60s with the garage bands. You all might remember the West Hampton Barge. That was Rick's thing, and then he graduated from UTEP in '72. Then Rick did a show called Macadamia, and that group was called the Sounds Royale Show. They left in '73, went to LA, and later Rick joined two other musicians and formed another vocal show called Tapestry. Nonetheless, we'll talk a little bit more about Rick a little later, but let me introduce Rick Kern, the organizer for the Border Legends El Paso concert. Rick, come on up.
Thank you, El Paso. How's everybody doing tonight? First line of business. I need everybody in this house tonight to stand up. Just stand up where you're at.
I am standing up.
I know it's hard for some of you to do this, but that's okay. Now, give yourself an applause. Now you can sit down. Thank you very much. Now I can tell everybody I got the first standing ovation tonight. First of all, before we get going, I need to tell you all, we got a little bit of housekeeping to do here. Without getting too far into this thing, the first person I want to thank tonight is Rudy Barasa, the guy that owns this beautiful facility. Let's give him a round of applause for letting us have this nice facility. There's another gentleman by the name of Ruben Escandon who's very busy with the Mount Crystal Ray Restoration Project. The money that we raise tonight, after we pay for the security and everything here, will go to the Mount Crystal Ray Restoration Project, a really nice organization that needs help. So, Ruben Escandon is the guy that told me about Rudy, so we really appreciate what he did to introduce me to Rudy to make this happen. I would like to thank the media of El Paso. We had some great help this year. KTEP NPR Radio. We have Florence Schwein, Monica Gomez, and Dennis Wu to thank for putting on a great couple of shows for us over there. Jackson Pope of Leon Metz. I want to thank Rod Crosby, George Reynoso, and Doug Neal for coming and helping me do the show in Leon Metz that day. El Paso Inc., Wendy Polk. Wendy and her husband Jackson over with Leon Metz. We appreciate all their help. Doug Pullen with the El Paso Times. KVIA, Kevin Level, and Dan Marine had me on TV last Sunday. It was a great show that they did. The radio stations, KLAQ, Buzz Adams, The Box, Sarge Preston. We'd like to thank them for the good words that they had to say to help advertise for us the last couple of days. Next thing, I'd like to, without these guys, this production could not happen. This is the Border Legends production staff. I really appreciate everything that they do. At the top of that list is Rod Crosby of Rod Crosby Sound. He's the man. There's nobody better in the business. He knows how to do it. Secondly, I would like to thank Larry Emerson and his staff at Results Video, Maria and Larry Emerson and James Brady. They do good work. And also Florence Schwein, connected with UTEP Radio. She interviewed us, did a great job for us. Along with the production staff, we have Robert Manning running our PA over here for the guys on stage, doing a great job. Skip Clark, Ron Lambert, Paul Hyder, Jay Nye, Frank Sapello, Ron Gordon helping with the staging. Danny Lucas McDaniel for loaning us a set of drums up here. We really appreciate that. He's done that for us for 3 years in a row. He's really a great guy. Special support sponsors for, if we didn't have the contributions of these guys to help put on this event, we wouldn't be able to do it. These are the guys that helped Rod bring in his equipment and help with the staging and all that. Sergio Luda's Body Shop, Harlan O'Leary, Sun City Realty, Ruddick Brothers Flying R Ranchwear, the Harry Clark family, and the Rick Stone family. We'd like to thank all of those guys too. Okay, now that we're done with that, I want to tell you a little bit about this event. 3 years ago, I started a music website called musiciansofElPaso.com. That little website, as my guitar player in Houston said, "You've really grown this thing into a monster." And I said, well, yeah, I have. Thanks to all these great musicians sending me their old pictures and things like that. It really became a success. About 2 years ago, my wife said, you know, this thing is getting so big, what you ought to do, Rick, is bring some of these groups back, some of the original bands. And so that was my goal last year. At the Lancers East, we had 11 bands, 47 musicians from all over the country. They used to be from El Paso. Some of these guys you're going to see up here tonight, again playing with us. But these guys really came to the task last year. They flew in from all over the place. We had a heck of a show, as many of you would remember that you were there. So we're glad you're back again this year with us. Tonight, we were supposed to have just a jam session, but when we heard that Randall Fuller was going to be coming to El Paso, we kind of switched gears and decided we need to make this a structured concert. So what we're going to do tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is after we get done performing, we're going to have an open jam session. We'll be done with the main structured concert probably around 11:30 in that ballpark. Until 1 o'clock, we're going to have an open jam for any musician in the audience that wants to get up there and play with us. You're welcome, okay? So we're glad to make that happen. And some of you think you can't do it anymore? Get up and do it anyway. You'd be surprised. It's not all that hard. Next thing I want to talk about real briefly, because I want to get this thing going. As a result of what happened with the success we had last year and this year, there is a young lady that did our MC work last year by the name of Karen Taylor Good. Karen Taylor Good is from El Paso. She's a phenomenal performer, songwriter, inspirational, motivational speaker. She does fabulous work. She's written a hit song for Patty Loveless. She's written hit songs for Al Jarreau, Melissa Manchester, Al Green. She's performed with Dolly Parton, Willie Nelson, on and on and on. Well, we've become very good friends, and she's been very inspirational for me to follow through with what I want to do in a form of a documentary. This has never been done in El Paso before, and so what I'm trying to do now is find any vintage video that you all might have in your closets or garages or anywhere. If you know of anybody that has old home videos of Bobby Fuller or David Hayes and the Ponds or the Instigators or any of these guys that used to play in El Paso back in the 60s and 70s, you need to get hold of me because I need some of that footage. I want to use it in the documentary. And what I want to do now, before I turn this thing over to the first group, is I want to play the song that nobody in this room has heard yet, except for I think Rod and a couple of guys. This is a song that Karen Taylor Good wrote, she has given me permission to use it for the documentary. The name of the song is It's What I Do, and that's going to be the name of the documentary. What I'd like to do right now, we're going to put the words up on the screen and the monitors around the room. I want you to watch the words, and you will understand all about why we musicians do what we do. Ladies and gentlemen, it's what I do. Go.
It's time to let it go, but I didn't choose this path, it chose me, that's all I know. And it's shot me to the heavens, and it's dropped me back to earth. Some days I can't decide if it's a blessing or a curse. It's what I do, it's who I am, it's in my heart, out of my hands. It's my passion, it's my truth, I've got no choice, it's what I do.
How'd y'all like that?
Hello, hey Rick.
She's pitching.
That's great. As an old radio guy, I can tell you that's super. That's the first time I've heard it.
You know, she's pitching that song to Garth Brooks right now, and she told me if Garth Brooks doesn't want to record it and somebody else does, then she's going to go back in the studio and re-record it and make it available to us for the documentary. The next thing I want to tell you about is that if any of you all tonight have any wishes to share some of your videos or pictures with me, I'd like to put them up on my blog site. I have exceeded my bandwidth with Blogger, so I'm going to have to start a whole new blog and start all over again, but only it's going to be on my terms this time, not theirs, so I can put 1 million pictures on there if I want to. But anyway, Give me your email addresses tonight if you would like to be on our fan base mailing list, so we can let you all know when we do these shows and we have other things going on. I manage PT and the Cruisers. I'm sure you've heard of those guys, a great group in El Paso. We can also add you to their mailing list, to their email list. Okay, let's get on with this show. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we have one of the premier DJs of El Paso. He was in the business working back in the old KELP days, right?
I'm way overrated.
You don't give yourself credit.
I used to go on the air for like 15 minutes and be bored to tears, and I used to get through it. But anyway, I stayed in the music industry, and I do the record store on the east side called All That Music and Video.
Yeah, he's got a very successful business on Lee Trevino called All That Music. If you need any vintage music, this is the guy to go to. He's got great collections, does a great job. Everybody, thanks for being here tonight. I'd like to turn this over to your MC for the night, George Reynoso.
Thank you, Rick. By the way, everybody, if anybody's got any trivia or any little notes or comments you think would be interesting to our audience tonight, I'll be floating around all evening. Just, I've got a pad of paper and we can scribble it, and there'll be time between the sets, but we've heard too much talk. We asked and solicited biographies on all the guests, all the artists tonight, and some of these guys, you know, you got to remember they're musicians. Some of them, I've got a couple of chapters on some, and I got 3 lines on our first guest. And that, you know, if you've been in the El Paso music scene for the last 40-45 years, there isn't anybody that doesn't know the name Zoomer Roberts from the great Northeast. Zoomer. Here's 3 lines of Zoomer's bio. Just tell him, he says, and here's a fellow who's been around for many, many years. You've seen him with Shade Tree Boys, the Applejack Band, in every dance hall on Dyer Street. Ladies and gentlemen, Zoomer Roberts.
Stop before the song tonight. Story of Bodine. Here's an Eddie Cochran song from the film The Girl Can't Help It. The song that got Paul McCartney into the Beatles. 20 Flight Rock. When the laughing got together with the wrecking machine, when it comes to rock with the cheese and queen, I love to dance on Saturday night. All alone I can hold her tight. When she lives on the 20th floor of town, the elevator's broken down. So I'll 4, 1, 2, flight 3, flight 4, 5, 6, 7, flight 8, flight 4. On the 12th I'm stopping the train, the 15th floor I'm fixing to say, I get to the top and too tired to ride. Well, she called me up on the telephone, I come over, honey, I'm all alone. I said, baby, you're not that sweet, I'm in bed with an aching feet. I've just waited on for a couple of days, and I could not stay away. So I walked with you like a deep like gold, 5, 6, 7, like 8 like gold. I put the 12 numbers on the train, 15 to move, I'm fixing to say, I get to the top and too tired to ride. Back here on the drums, David Rutledge. To my immediate right, your immediate left, Jack Woodbury. And of course, I don't go anywhere ever without Buddy Winston. Thank you. Hey, a real quick little story. Back around 1956, or 57, there was a doo-wop group. And they were called the Diamonds, and they put out a record called Little Darling. And there was 4 people in the group, and they all sang different parts on it, and some of them sang high, and some of them sang low. And the economy being what it is, I'm going to try to sing the whole thing by myself. And we hope you like this. If you don't, well, it doesn't last very long. Little Darling, key G. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Super Lords, everybody. Let's hear it for them. By the way, if you all are drinking tonight, the bar is directly behind the stage. If you've got the munchies, the food is at that end. And I understand part of the proceeds on the food and drink tonight is going to the Restoration Fund with the Mount Cristo Rey committee. So take care of that. Coming up next is the Wild Ones, okay? Austin High School area. Anybody remember the Wild Ones? They'll be up in about 10 minutes. I'll get their little bio ready. I got it single spaced on about an 8-point font. So let me look through that real quick. We'll get ready for the Wild Ones. You all have a good time. We'll be with you shortly. Restoration Committee is here. Come on up, Ruben Escandon, tell us about your project. Hey, Ruben.
How you doing?
Real good. Mount Cristo Rey Restoration Committee, what's that all about?
Well, Mount Cristo Rey Committee itself is charged with taking care of our monument up here on the mountain at Mount Cristo Rey. And everything that we do there, we're on a volunteer basis. And all these volunteers, we got a group of about 30, 40 guys that go up there every week to take care of the trails, prepare the roads, and the monument itself for our annual pilgrimage that we come up here. So we take care of all the maintenance and restoration for Mount Cristo Rey. And of course, we're funded strictly on donations. So programs like this that help us out, raise some money, this is how we get by for keeping Mount Cristo Rey alive. And hopefully we'll keep it around for several generations to come so that everybody and your kids and our kids can enjoy it also in the future.
How long have you been doing this? How long has the group been together, the committee?
The committee itself was started when the monument was built in 1939. So this is my 27th year as a volunteer up there.
Okay, what can people look forward to with all the money that's coming in? I mean, do you have like a landmark project that you're working toward, or is this just maintenance?
Pretty much maintenance that goes on a monthly basis and all every year. But we strive to make the trail itself more accessible, to have it at least a little safer for people to come up there and enjoy it.
Well, I know on behalf of Rick and all the group, all the bands, I know they're happy to do it, so thank you again. Ruben Escandon, everybody. By the way, later tonight, if you didn't know, if you didn't see it in the paper, we got Moon Pie Dance Band, Bobby Rosales and the Premiers, Randy Fuller in the house tonight, Rod Rob is doing his sound tonight. Hey, Rob, say hello to everybody. They're going to be up here too. You're a guest. That's Robin Benegoff, another old-time El Paso musician.
Hello.
Robin's, what was the name of the shop on Montana? What was Robin's shop on Montana? The box shop.
Robin's Music Box Center.
There you go. Rod Crosby and the Gypsies. And then, of course, the Wild Ones who will be here in about 5-10 minutes. And then we got the jam, okay? So stay tuned.
Robin's Box Music Center.
Okay, real quick, here's the bio on the Wild Ones, okay? They started in Ray Moore's den on Altura Street. Terry Manning used to record in the shower for reverb effects on an old reel-to-reel, and I think it was Terry that came up with the name, the Wild Ones. Terry moved out of town, Frank Sotelo and Paul West joined the band, and that's when they started getting gigs. Now, see if you can keep up with this. You're gonna be quizzed on this later. Frank and Paul moved on to another group eventually called Swift Rain with Andre and Letterman Pat Blanks. Kenny Smith and Bobby Sotelo joined Roy and me. Kenny on lead and Bobby on bass. Later, Kenny, Roy, and I joined Mike Chigarelli in California and backed up people like Bobby Sherman on Shindig and Hullabaloo fame, and off to the shoot they went. At any rate, they've all played in various bands since then. I played in all lawyer bands for about 10 years here in El Paso. The Fabulous Foreclosures. Andre and Paul Dillon joined me in that group for a while. They played for various charities like the Sun Bowl Association. Miss USA pageant, when it was held here, played around the state for, they've done it all. And the band members are, before we get to it, on bass guitar, Leon Ackerman. Frank Sotelo on guitar. Paul Dillon guitar. And we got George Peel on drums. Ladies and gentlemen, from the Austin High School area, the Wild Ones.